Hello, this is RSEKY, the Android guy. Hey guys, so today I'm bringing you the benchmark test for the Galaxy Note 3. Now, really interested to see how this one stacks up. I did have to make one quick change from my normal. I usually do quadrant benchmark, but that just has not been working for the past at least 2 days. So, therefore, I'm going to go to CPU Prime benchmark, which was one of the best benchmarks I could find that had relatively newer devices as opposed to a lot of them that just have very old devices. So we're going to be going through this row right here, first finding out what's inside, then CPU Prime, AT&T, and then 3D Mark. Let's take a look. And sure. And so this is the LTE version of the the Note 3. So it has the Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 processor, 2.27 or 2.3 as it's often called. It is a quad core, of course. However, most apps will generally use the first 2 cores. The graphics card, the GPU is Adreno 330, which is pretty much one of the top graphics cards out there on the market right now. Handles very well, and we'll see how well it handles, of course, on the gaming review. In terms of the system itself, this also is, of course, a 1080p screen with Android 4.3 on board, and it has a DPI that doesn't seem right. I swear it's like 300 and something, not 480 DPI. Oh, sorry, no. Yeah, it's a 480 DPI, but pixels per inch is it's 360 or 380 something, I want to say. It does have a total of 3 gigs of RAM. As we can see, the available RAM, however, is pretty used up right now. I'm probably going to clear it before I run the benchmark test. Internal storage is 32 gigs, with giving you 26, which is a lot better compared to the S4 of the built-in storage it had. And that is, I do not have root access, and this is, the battery has been doing really well thus far for the past 2 days. Lots of sensors, obviously, with Samsung. So let's test this out, and let me clear the RAM first. So let me clear the RAM for our first test. Goes off. And there we go. So a lot more of the processing power should be available now. And let's check out the first one, which is CPU Prime benchmark. I also like this one because it tests out a couple of things. One, single core, then the multi-core, and then the maximum. So just to give a good idea of how it relates to. Okay. And so this one I really liked because it had the S4 on there. And as you can see, this one scored much higher than even the S4 did. So it's pretty interesting on how much more. You have a 6282 score, whereas the S4 scored 4950. So definitely a huge improvement compared to the Nexus 4, which was last year's Snapdragon quad core. Again, dramatically more as well. So this is definitely scoring very high, as it should be in comparison to the other 2 Qualcomms, the Qualcomm 600 and the Qualcomm S4 Pro processor. So fairly good, and we can see all the way down here was the original Note, so definitely a long ways away from the first Note. And now let's run the AT&T benchmark test. Like AT&T's new interface, it looks pretty nice. This was what we scored last time when I tried the first time. Now we will test it again and see how it does. Definitely like AT&T's new interface. It looks a lot cleaner. And I don't know if it seems to go faster than before, or if it's just the phone is obviously a more powerful phone, so it's testing quicker. but it seems not to be taking as long on the CPU portions as it did before. And I'll make sure to show the frames per second right here at the bottom as it comes up. And again, this is their new interface, so even a different video than before. All right, and we can see where this scores. So this time it scored even better than the previous one. The previous one I think was 29 something. This time it scored 34,111, which considerably better than even things like the HTC One and the S4. And there we even see the Note 2. So considerably better compared to the top devices out right now. The top 20. Let's compare. These are the top ones. So we can see how it compares to the HTC One. Is there anything the HTC One beats it on? Nope. And then compared to the S4, is there anything the S4 would beat it on? Interesting enough, very much close with the 2D graphics, but no, so definitely clear cut between those. This isn't a mainstream model, but let's check it out. So the overall score is even better than their top one. It seems like, although on this one, something like 2D graphics, one over here, but that's about it. So definitely interesting to see how it's being ranked compared to other models out there. It's not the top one, as we can see, 3411, and we see some that scored higher. But of course, is it an average? What is that device as well? Is kind of what we're trying to find out, but doesn't really say. So very high in terms of that benchmark, and in terms of the 3D Mark test, we have a couple of different ones to compare it to. So these are the scores that I got maxed out, 94, so just so we can see. This did get maxed out, which these are the other devices that got maxed out on the regular. So it's with the iPhone 5S, the Asus Pad 2, the Nexus 7. But when we got to more substantial ones, so again, 9244, on this one, let me see, not as high scores. Let me actually try to go to the devices on here, and let's go to the extreme. So it's not as good as, I guess, the LTE-A version of the S4 or the Z1 that was just announced, 995. So also the G2 seemed to get slightly above it, as well as, well, that's pretty much it. The G2 is the main one above it. And then for this one, for the ultimate test, it scored 14,871. That pretty much blows all of these out of the water, but let's try, see how it ranks on this side against the top performers. So again, it was 14,871 versus, so again, it seems to be right below the G2 on here, and better than everything else, lower than that. So these look like to be the top one. The S4 LTA seems to be one of the best ones overall for the more intensive purposes in the extreme. But at least in terms of processing speed, this is obviously mainly graphics. In terms of processing speed, one of the top players out there. In terms of graphics, one of the top players, but not the top. Alright guys, hopefully you found this benchmark test useful, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. This has been RACKY, the Android Guy.